In this lesson I want to show you some standard usage of morphs, because morphs are not really used only for corrective shapes, they are used for much more. With morphs you can create various facial expressions for this character, so let's do just that. That's really a standard usage of morphs, so we will cover that also. So let's create that morph tag, character, pose morph, and let's go to point mode, and here under pose morph tag, we'll first activate what we want to morph. In this case, we want to morph points. You see, we already have a pose 0, we can edit, so we'll do just that. So let's create a simple morph. Let me do really quickly something here, something like increase this radius, let's say 10. See, I can drop this here so it will be accessible really quickly, just a matter of preference. So we'll do something really quickly. Don't mind the quality, it's not about the quality now, it's just to show you how things work. Okay, this will be it. So here under morph, if we go to animate mode, or here under strength, we can see actually our morphed state. Okay, especially in the animate, and it is really good practice to name your morphs. So this would be, let's say, some sort of a smile. Then we'll add an underscore L, where L will stand for the left, so I can distinguish later what is left, what is right. So you can now see you have many options to create various facial expressions, and this all works even if your mesh has joints and has weighting applied. It doesn't matter, this will be a secondary layer of deformation. In Cinema 4D you don't have the option to paint the morphs asymmetrically, but you do have an option. When you right click on the existing morph, you can flip it in any direction. So in this case this would be the X direction, like this. So if you do a flip X command, that morph will simply transfer itself to the other side. You can undo that. So the best workflow here is actually to right click, copy this existing morph, and simply right click once again and say paste. So now you have two completely the same guys. You can flip one of them, so flip X, and simply rename this to R, which would imply this is the right side. So that was pretty simple. The obvious question is, how do you combine morphs? How can you select both of them and create a new morph based on what you select? Because now, as you can see, if I select any other morph, it will show us the properties and the effect of that morph. And if I control click, let's say the second one, I will still see the effect of the first that I selected. So to resolve that, you have to put this edit mode to in place. Okay, you can see this now. Now if you select these both guys and shift click this add pose, it will create a new morph based on those two. And if you're wondering why this lady is now looking really weird, simply because now those values are doubled. You can see that this smile left and smile right are at 100%, and we added them once more with this pose 0. Okay, I'll demonstrate that. And if I turn these two down, you can see we now actually have one single smile. Okay? Let's crank them all to 100, back to edit mode, and let's call this smile. Nice thing about morphs is they are working together seamlessly. You can see this. It doesn't destroy the existing one. They are mixing really nicely. I'll turn down this strength of this smile and crank this smile right and smile left all the way to 100%. You can use any polygon manipulating tool in Cine4D. So any modeling tool to create your own morphs. That is really, really powerful. So now you can imagine how this can become really, really complex in a short period of time, and how complicated this can get. There is also a way that I will show you in later lessons to create 2D vector field to control various amounts of your morph that you created. Let's just tune those down a bit, something like this. Let's say 50%, so we have really somewhat of a nice smile from this lady, not this crazy evil smile. Okay, so it's much more pleasant to work with. The next thing I want to show you is you can actually see there are quite a few mixing modes available here. We already used this correctional mode for our correction deformer in previous lesson, and I think this absolute and relative is pretty self-explanatory, and I want to talk just briefly about this rotational mode. So let's create a new pose, so we will hit the add pose, and let's create a closed eye for this mesh. So just quickly, nothing fancy, I will just select a few of these points really quickly and pull them down a bit, something like this, and maybe scale them a bit like this. So I don't want to waste too much time doing this, so I could really maybe select these two guys, pull them a bit upwards, and maybe select a loop of these guys, expand that loop a bit, and simply scale all that to something like this. Doesn't have to be perfect, it's just an example. Let's smooth that out a bit, something like this. Okay, so actually when the eye is blinking, this upper eyelid does the most of the movement. This lower lid, it really moves just a little bit. You can see that by looking at the mirror. So let's go back to our pose and see what we have, and yeah, it's acceptable, let's say. I will enable my hypernerves. So one problem that you will most certainly encounter is, you can see here we have somewhat of a problem here, because the eyelid is actually intersecting the eye mesh, and you can avoid that by setting this to rotation, so it won't go in a linear way to find its new position. So it will rather choose an arcing motion to get in that new position, and you can, in this case, just collapse this layer browser. I really don't need it. You can see I can choose the actual rotation plane for that morph. So I can select 2 points, let's say maybe these two, and here under morph, once you select 2 points, hit from points, and I don't think you will be actually able to see that now. Maybe if I just play a bit with this position, you can actually see that yellow guy here, and that yellow guy means the plane of rotation, where those how that morph will try to reach its position. You can see it's a little bit different now. So it's trying to reach its goal in somewhat different rotational manner. It doesn't really follow linear pattern. You can of course play with that as much as you like. And of course, if you still have problems, you can naturally pull those points just a bit. So be sure you are in your pose, that you're using 100%, and maybe tweak those points just a bit. You naturally have to spend a lot of time to do your morph. It will really pay off at the end. So let's see how this behave. And you can see it really goes in somewhat different manner. I hope you can actually see that. Let's try it like this. You can see it's really different, and it has some sort of skin feature to it. You'll get completely different results if you put it, say, on the opposite side, somewhere like here. So you can see it now follows this pattern. This is the basic state. So the points are actually somewhere like here. And you can see it follows the arcing motion down to this position. I hope this is clear enough to understand. And this rotational morph is really used for stuff like eyes, especially when you have a character that has really pronounced eyes, meaning they are really round and they are going far out from the eye socket. Okay, so let's be consistent and name this eye closed, in this case the left eye. I can simply copy this guy and paste it here and flip it on the other side. So let's say flip X and rename it right here. So just replace the L with R. So now we have a closed eye also for this right guy. You can once again create closed eyes for both of them. If we select both of these guys, be sure that you are editing in place and hold the shift key, that is really important, and click add pose. Actually, I added also the smile morphs to this new pose. I don't want to do that. Let me go back to selected. And I'll just disable everything I don't need. Okay? So just this eye closed, L and eye closed right will be enabled. Go back to edit in place and simply shift click the add pose button. Now you can actually see it created the new guy. We will call it eyes closed. Okay, back to selected. And you can see we can also mix these guys seamlessly. Our eyes can be both completely closed, or we can add to another one as we want. Let me enable all these guys and go back to edit mode. You can already see with little effort, with really a little amount of time, we already created some expressions for this lady. So we added some sort of a little smile. So of course you can animate all those values. We can even make this lady blink to us just a bit. Morphs are really nice stuff. You can experiment and bring your characters to life. Since rigging and especially animating is all about finding solutions for new situations, so finding the solution to problems, fixing and adding functionality, layering deformations, I will actually do something that is really interesting now. And let's say that you need this character to be blinking, to be randomly blinking, but you also want to keep some sort of a control over that blinking. Once again, with a little bit of espresso, we will make that happen. So add that espresso tag, and once again, I will dock it because I prefer to work that way, like this. And now the obvious. As we said, you cannot drag those guys in here, and we will have to drag the complete tag inside, because we obviously want to control one of these parameters. And in this case, we want to control these eyes closed. So we have to find a way to randomly and quickly tell these eyes closed to reach 100% and then go back to 0. Simply because blinking is a really fast operation. And also what we want it to appear randomly, because if this will appear in some sort of repeated manner, it will be picked up really quickly and it will really not look natural. Although there is a random node here inside general, there is a noise node which is much more suitable and easily controllable than the random node, and we will use this as our random guy. What is important is really to try to understand firstly what are you trying to achieve, and then find the ways to do it. Okay? So because simply digging through the nodes inside Espresso is not really a good idea. So if I actually want to find out what this noise guy does, I will create a new node, and this new node should be the result node. So I can actually see what is going inside that node. So currently it's outputting some sort of value, and if we press play and then hit stop, we'll once again get a new number, and this can lead you to think that this value is not changing in those frames, and it actually does, but you have to enable this animation refresh. So if you press play now, you'll see they're constantly changing. Let me just go back to the beginning, and let's be smart here now and simply connect this noise value to our strength of our closed eyes and see what happens, and we will solve the problems as we encounter them. So let's give it a try. And this can look really interesting for some sci-fi scenes, but this is actually not what we are looking for. And the first thing we will want to solve is, you can see that this morph is sometimes driven in negative values, so we want to say positive values only. And now our lady looks really sleepy. Let me stop this and go back. One thing that you can also notice is that this is happening too slow. So for that to change, we will increase this frequency, let's say to 10. And this is too fast, it really looks like she's having a seizure of some sort. And let's try to dropping this to 5. This could be acceptable. And now take a closer look here at these numbers. I will really zoom that Espresso node so you can actually see this. You see it really revolves around, let's say, 0.200 and 0.600, something around that range, but it really seldomly hits anything over 0.6. So that is exactly what we need. We will use this to our advantage. We will use it in the next manner. So we would like to achieve. So whenever this result is more than, let's say, 0.6, we would like to enable the full strength of our morph. Because currently, as you can see here, it works in the percentage. So this value will be converted into percentage, and the problem with it is that eyes do not close all the way to 100%. Let me stop this and go back. And we want to fix that. So we want to output 0 or 1 value to this eyes closed strength. Because 0 will mean simply 0% here, and 1 would mean 100% of the strength. So we have to find a node that is able to interpret our result, actually, so it's able to understand these values. And the other option that node should be, it should be able to tell what to do and why to do it. Okay? So that node is here under logic. That node is called compare node. So let's connect this first input 1, and we'll see the data type is real, and leave it like this. We can actually, just to understand better, I will copy this result node and simply see what is going on in that node. Let's hit play. And you see it's constantly outputs a 0 value. We have to define the input too. So if you remember what we said, this seldomly hits anything over 0.600. So let's say our compare node, whenever is something bigger than 0.6, this function, because this means it's bigger than this input 2, it will output a result of 1. I hope this is not really too confusing. So you can see it, sometimes it enables, sometimes it outputs a value of 1. Okay, so this is exactly what we need. So it will output 1 only when this hits something over 0.600. Let me stop that, go back. All these nodes inside Espresso can be a little bit intimidating, but I really strongly encourage you to take time to sit down, make yourself a coffee or tea or anything you drink, because you will be rewarded afterwards, because Espresso is really, really awesome. Now we have, let's say, a working setup. So we will randomly have 100% of this eye closed value. So simply, instead of wiring it from the noise node, we can wire it from this compare node. And you can see the results. It is the random blinking. It may appear a little bit not natural, and you can play with these values here. So let's try with 4, something like this. It would be a little bit more natural. And what is great about it, you can mix those morphs, regardless of this existing morph that is tied in this Espresso, and have random blinking. And you can actually see it really appears random. You cannot say when it will happen. If you want to have it more seldomly, you will lower the number in the compare node. If you want it to have more rarely, you increase the number. And you have to guide yourself with this value that is outputted from this noise node. I really, really hope this is not too difficult to understand, and that it's really interesting. Let's stop this. So now when you have that options, you can simply create your custom HUD controller, custom user data control, to control the speed of the blinking, to control the seldomness of blinking, and you can actually control the strength of the blink itself. And trust me, this is the most simple setup I could think of. There are so many complicated blinking setups out there. Sure, this setup can be expanded, but this would probably be a little bit complicated to do right now, and especially if most of you that are watching are not really that acquainted with Espresso. So that is why I prefer those simple setups. So what I want to do, I also want to clean up. I will delete this result node, and let's say that you want to have that control in the, we'll collapse this Espresso, just to have a little bit more space and go back to 0. So let's say you want to have an option to disable blinking. That is really simple. So if we press play now, you can actually drag this enable guy here directly in the HUD, so you can stop the blinking at any time. The issue that comes right now is actually that you cannot control these eyes closed if the Espresso is enabled. Okay? Let me show you that. You just cannot do anything with it, but you can once again copy this guy and create additional eyes closed control that is free of Espresso, and it will work seamlessly with this blinking guy. Maybe we should do that. So let's just right click, copy this guy, paste it, and simply rename it eyes closed with underscore free, so you can control it. And here you can right click and stay to this Espresso to be shown always, and go to animate mode, You can see you can mix between those two. Since we are doing already something around the eyes, let me show you something that is really problematic for many users, and it's really simple, and that is how to create eye control. So eye should follow one single control and have also separate eye control. To do that kind of functionality, we would have to play with constraints, but we will solve a few things. And the first thing you have to do, you have to separate your eyes into single meshes. To do that, the most easiest way is to go to polygon mode, and you can see already I have a selection of this complete right eye. Let me deselect all, and better do that on this left eye. It's much more closer and it feels more natural to me. So I'll fill that selection, and here under functions menu I will say split. So that will create a new mesh. And while you create a new mesh, you can freely delete this one you made the selection from. So delete it, but beware, the points will stay. So you can go to functions, and here is an optimize, and hit optimize, so it will clear all that points. What is also important, you can see that axis is actually for each of these eyes. I will name them accordingly. So let's say I_R, and this will be naturally _left. So the axis is left in the middle, and you don't want that. You want it to be in the logical position. It should be in the center of the mesh. So select both of these guys, go structure, axis center, and simply hit execute. So now those axis guys will be where they should be. Now we have all we need to build that eye setup, and the best idea here is to use null objects. So the eyes will aim to null objects, and we can use the existing eyes and convert them to nulls. So we will get two nulls. We can take them out from the hierarchy and simply move them somewhere in front of the eyes, something like this. You could also create a standard controller for it. So let's say not a cube in this case, maybe circle, a little bit smaller radius. Yes, this could be fine. So let's do that for the right eye also. And the orientations should be X, Z. Okay, that's it. As I said many times before, it is a really good idea to name your objects properly, because you can easily lose track. So add the suffix to your null's target. So how do we get those eyes to actually always follow these guys? We will do that with constraints. So let's do the first eye, the left eye. Add a character tags constraint and activate this aim guy. We will add a target, and the target in our case is this eye left target. One word of caution though, you can see here the axis Z plus is set as the axis that will point to the target. Okay, so if we drop this right now, so if we drop this target here, then the eye would flip. Watch this. Okay, let me undo that. And what we want to set this y-axis to be pointing to this eye target. So let's set it to y plus. And once we drop the target, it will all be fine. There will be no flipping. And now you can see the eye is actually always looking at that target. Let's do the same for the right eye. So once again, character constraint, aim, add a target, y plus, and here in this case, eye right target. Okay, so it works also here. To simply create a parent control for these two guys is to select them here and group them with OG. We'll rename this eyes, and it's a really good idea to freeze all these guys. So to freeze transformations so you have nice zero values, so this reset position guy will always work. So now if you will select just your eyes controller, then the both eyes will follow. And of course the reset position will work. This setup is really easy, and it also works with random blinking. You can actually create a standard controller on this guy also and scale it a bit downwards. Just to know that this is a master controller for the eyes. So you can actually see this works. One thing that pops to mind is actually you can create corrective shapes for these eyes, because they will certainly pop up just a bit on the side. So you can actually mimic those movements of the eyes under the eyelids with corrective shapes. And in this case you would just use rotation values of the eyes as the drivers for your corrective shape, for your morph. Let me stop this, go back, and I can reset the position of that eye controls. You can even do this without Espresso, because there is a nice thing inside Cina 4D which is called a driver tag that can help you in certain situations to avoid manually doing everything in Espresso. So let's take a look at that driver tag, and you can find the driver tag inside character tags, driver, and you will see many parameters here. So it's a somewhat more advanced version of set driver and set driver command we did a few lessons back. And as you can see, the driving parameter can be really position, the scale, rotation, and so on and so forth. So you can use lots of these parameters as drivers. Here you will put your driven object. In this case, let's say I want to drive a morph in a special way. So I will put my tag here, and as soon as you put the object here, you will gain access to its parameters, and you can see this. You can recognize these are our morphs. A nice addition here in this driving parameter is that you can actually create a user data on your object, and it will also appear as a driving parameter. So let me show you a fairly common way to do morphs, to create a 2D vector field where you can actually assign morphs, various morphs on a single field. It will be much more clearer when I will show you that. So first we have to create a user data. I will create add user data, name it morph field, and the interface for this guy will be vector. And in this case it should be 2D vector field, and you can see how this guy looks. Example is right here. You can actually move a little crosshair inside the box. I want to change a few settings here, and since morphs work in percentage, I will change this to %, and this step size is a little bit too low, so I will set this to 1%. So it means 1% at a time. Okay, I hope that you understand this, and see, currently the default value is 0, 0 here, so it means it's always in the bottom left corner, and I want it to be in the middle, so that should be 50 with 50%. That is my desired default value, so it should be right in the middle. Okay? So let's hit OK, and we will get that user data here. So What is this useful for? Let's imagine that you create various morphs on your mouth, and you can then have the ability to assign each morph to a position here inside these boxes. So for example, this upper right corner would be smile left, this bottom corner would be, let's say, sad left, and you get the picture, and then you can nicely blend between those morphs. That is really useful. So to do just that, you will now go to the driver tag and select your driving parameter, morph field. If you remember, that's how we named our user data. So now our morph field will drive that. Here you have an ability to increase the resolution. Watch what happens. I'm actually getting a grid, and this grid has points on it which are selectable, and you can select any of these points and assign a certain morph to it. This is pretty powerful, but before we actually do some sort of vector morphing, let me just center this a bit, and I'll add this morph field to HUD. So it's simply accessible all the time, and we just get rid of this name in the morph field, so we have some sort of more neat control. And I will also right click and say show always, so we always have this control accessible. We can now even deselect our mesh, and actually it will be much more clear to see what we are trying to achieve. So let's say that I want to control the mouth as I decided before. To me, logically, if controller would be, let's say, in a uppermost right position, this would really correspond to some sort of left smile here, and vice versa, this position here would be the right smile. Let me just reset this to default, and I can set that here, and let's select that position here and assign a morph to it. And we will assign it by simply selecting the right parameter here. And in this case, we want the smile left. That should be really, really simple. One thing to notice is be sure you're in animate mode, and if you want to avoid any confusion, simply drop all the morphs to 0 just to be sure. Let's now give it a shot. So we map this position to 100% of smile left. Let's see what it does. And it actually does so. And enough for this simply interpolates all the values in between. That is pretty neat. I will just right click and reset this guy. And let's create another. Let's create a complete opposite. So for example, here in this position, this would be, say, some sort of a sad position, and let's select that position here and assign the same guy, because I want to show you the problem that will actually happen. And as you remember, you can put your morphs in negative values, let's say -100, and it will be the completely opposite result. So let's see what happens now. See, it's kind of sad. It's not really good because it's not the morph we created with that purpose, but it will serve, for example. But watch what happens if I go to my uppermost right. Nothing happens. And why is that? That is simply because this method is set to replace. If you want to mix two same morphs, use other methods, for example, like add. Let's give it a shot. You can see it now works as you would expect to work. So you can imagine this can become really, really elaborate. For example, let's say that on the other side, this would be simply smile right, and on the bottom part, also smile right, but in -100, and have to change the method, and the add is really suitable right now. So this means I will just copy the setup to other side. The amount of points you can put on this is extremely high, so you can have a really detailed and complex deformations. You can create quite a fantastic results with this driver tag. For example, you can set this guy to be say a smile, a complete smile. So this would control both of the guys, this just this side. You can see it's really natural. Try it out. It's really good, and it's really good in another sense because it can be animated, and that is really good. And what do I mean by animated? You simply can animate this morph field without the need to actually animate the morphs. Let me just show you that. So for example, let's control click on this little guy. It will add a keyframe. Watch how it becomes red, and let's scrap time to, let's say, 50 or 100, and change this value to something like maybe this, and add another key. If you play now our animation, watch what happens. It really animates that guy. That is awesome. You can simply keyframe a single value here and all of your morphs will be recorded. That is superb feature. You can create complex characters with expressions, with various deformations on them, with phonemes. They can actually talk, and only the imagination is your limit. Don't forget, you can drive with various other, let's say, typical things inside Cine 4D, like position, scale, rotation, or something like that. But the most powerful thing is the ability to put user data as a driving parameter. So this driver tag is really used, let's say, primarily for this purpose, but it can serve for many things, and it can avoid lots of manual espresso for the ones among you that really don't like that kind of stuff. So let's go to our next lesson.